Hello, everybody. How's everyone doing? All good? Okay, thank you for hanging about. I know there's been a lot of, I've learned so much information. It's been really interesting and incredible to be here. So a few people asked me about me and what I do. So I know there's a brief intro and I'm happy to answer questions afterwards, but most of my career has been in technology. I was a product manager at Google for about a decade, mostly working with machine learning, AI, and I was also one of the founding members of the arts and culture team at Google, and now work in that space. One of the things, before we go further, I think, just to kind of sit on, is a lot of the conversations that I've been listening to, both inside and outside the room, have been about this moment of heaviness and pain and almost sharing a grief together as we come together in this space. But as I've been hearing people speaking, you also reflect that on the other side of pain is always love. And I think that's something that is really beautiful to hold right now, and it's something that I want to talk about a little bit in my presentation, is that in order to build new worlds, in order to be inspired, in order to imagine for a future, we need to come as much from places of pain and heartbreak as well as from love. And that's something to hold on to. I'm going to talk a little bit about my work, and I'm going to talk about what most of you now have been hearing a lot about, is AI and where that connects with creativity. But before we start, are there anybody in the room who's an artist or designer, architect? Okay, cool. Got it. Nice to see. So we've been hearing a lot about where AI and technology connects with many sectors and many industries, and creativity is basically embedded now into pretty much every single aspect of where AI manifests in our lives, whether it's how we communicate, how we think, how we transact. But there's also the space of what you saw on that Slido, is what is creativity? Is it culture? Is it art? Is it music? Is it film? But I wanted to take a step back. Obviously, this is an interesting question probably to pose to this room, is what is the perception that we have of ourselves as human? And one of the conversations that's coming up a lot from the perspective of Western philosophy, techno-philosophy, is what does AI mean for how we see ourselves? What is the role of human imagination, of the human spirit, of human creativity in a moment where technology, in many ways, is taking over the skills that we consider to be creative? This photograph is of a British artist, Jonathan Yeo. He's actually pictured here at the Royal Academy in London, and he is using a tool called Google Tilt Brush, which allowed him to create art in 3D, using this tool. It could be viewed in a headset. It was the first self-portrait that Johnny Yeo made. This is maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Johnny was really happy. It went up in the Royal Academy. It was an incredible exhibition. But actually today, I'm not sure that we would really need Johnny in the room at all to make that artwork. And I think as we consider the future of what it means to actually make paintings, to write a screenplay, to write an original script, to create music, the question we're going to have to confront for ourselves is, where is the line between where technology ends and human imagination and skill takes over? So my argument is that AI is not about what's artificial. AI is, as we've heard many, many times, technology is a tool, it's a driver, it's a vehicle to get to new outcomes. But what is artificial about AI? And we know what it is. What is real? It's very hard to figure out attribution in technology right now, especially in programs like ChatGPT. We have issues of copyright, law, ownership, IP. But what we don't know is where creativity sits in all of this. How many of you guys heard the collaboration between Drake and The Weeknd that was generated by AI? Yeah, this is like last year. There is an entity called Ghostwriter. We don't know if Ghostwriter is a bot or a human, but Ghostwriter created a viral song, a collaboration between Drake and The Weeknd that was not a real song, which was fine. Lots of people heard it. It was actually quite good. But when these guys got together to try to figure out how to deal with it from a legal point of view, they realized that there was actually no IP law in America that was going to support either of them, Drake and The Weeknd, from having any share of the revenue, from shutting the song down. There was no way of understanding how to engage with it from a legal perspective. And here we see the beginnings of where AI and what it means for the creative sector is actually going to be referenced across industry. It's very rare to have a technology that comes to the forefront of what we consider of, human skills. Nuclear weapons, cars, none of them have actually really connected with the idea of the human self. And AI as a set of technologies is actually opening up new ideas and new outcomes for what it means to be creative into the future. So I'm going to ask you guys a question. If a song was created by AI and listened to a bot on Spotify, was it even listened to at all? This is just a broader philosophical question, and we're going to have a lot more of these happen over time. And I think that one of the things that we're going to have to confront with AI is that in terms of what we consider to be progress, which is efficiency, outcome, output, where the line between AI and the human self and the human spirit come together is actually very difficult to quantify right now. And these are questions that we're all going to have to engage with in many different ways. So we've been talking about ethics. What is responsible AI? What's ethical AI? What's just? What's friendly? But actually, until we understand ourselves, what we bring to the table, it's going to be very difficult to set rules that are universal for technologies that are being built without the whole world in mind. This has been called the age of the Novacene. How many of you guys have heard of James Lovelock? He's a writer, he's a scientist. He wrote the first book on Gaia theory, which was this idea that the whole earth is in a sort of fundamental balance with itself. And he wrote, his last book, which he wrote at the age of 98, was called The Novacene. And he believes that we're moving into a new period where human and machine intelligence will not just live alongside one another. Eventually, machine intelligence is going to take over from where humans actually exist and work. It sounded far-fetched, and I don't think technology is going to be something that is new for creativity. We know that creativity has been led by technology in many ways. We've had special effects, we've had VR, we've had gaming, we've obviously had music, media. But I do believe that the AI-first era is going to be different. This image is actually taken off of Hugging Face. When Pablo Picasso first went to the Lascaux cave in southern France, the Lascaux caves are actually ancient prehistoric caves where cavemen made paintings on the walls of those caves. Picasso said, since Lascaux, which was about 17,000 years ago, human creativity has not evolved at all. Well, this image is from Hugging Face, where you type in caveman, Lascaux cave, fire, and you get something that looks extremely hyper-realistic. And I think here is a moment of us to consider where technology can go and what does it mean for us to come up with our own ideas, our own critical thinking, and our own sense of what we want to manifest in the world. And creativity is a great example of where we will be confronting AI from the perspective of our own value systems and our own ethical codes. This artist, Sugwen Chang, works with robots. She was at MIT Media Lab. She's actually based in London. And this is called DALL-E 2. It's the second robot that she designed, and she paints alongside robots. And her whole practice is designed to showcase that as we move into this next era of where creativity between human and machine is a conversation and a partnership, we don't have to consider this to be a battle. We should be channeling and leveraging AI to push ourselves, to push our bodies, to push our minds into new avenues. Because intelligence is obviously not just what's cognitive. Intelligence is not just what corporations are building for us. There's the intelligence of other species, obviously of the cosmos. There's the intelligence of our bodies. There's what's more than human. And that is a conversation that has been taking place in the world of art, design. Many of you guys who work in that space will be very aware of this. There's a writer called James Bridle who actually wrote a great book called Ways of Being on AI and Intelligence. And I'll read the quote to you. What would it mean to build artificial intelligences and other machines that were more like octopuses, more like fungi, or more like forests? And I think it's a really relevant conversation for this room. What does it mean to believe? What is intuition? What goes beyond logic? What's just feeling and knowing? What is sensing? And could we build technologies that are actually going deeper outside of what does it mean to be logical or mathematically measurable? What is the purpose of building technologies if they're not actually connecting with the value systems that we bring to the table? AI is already supporting creativity and content. Here's tons of ways. This is actually Indonesia's first AI news presenter. We're going to see a lot more of this, especially in India. Companies like the New York Times are actually working with newscasters to manifest lots of different dialects in ways that are hyper-realistic. This is Wayne McGregor. He's a choreographer of the Royal Ballet, and he actually built a tool using AI to help him to choreograph new dance. He didn't need to have new ideas for how to make new dance, but for Wayne, as a choreographer that works with the body, the idea of what's embodied within us, the intelligence of our muscles, the memory that they have, the way we connect with one another, how we feel climate and temperature and space, was something that he felt was not showing up in the tools that he was using. So he built his own technology, his own platform, which you can find online, which actually took from his own practice and pushed engineers at Google to build new systems and to think about algorithms that they wouldn't have actually considered otherwise. I'm going to keep going. This conversation has come up a lot, and I'm going to share this here because I think it's necessary. When we think about creativity, when you think about culture, we're talking about decolonization, we're talking about inclusivity, without referencing the fact that not everybody is at the table in building technology. We're not going to manifest truly creative outcomes. We're not going to have cultural diversity in building art, in building culture, in creating new dance, in creating conversation. So in order to represent, through technologies, through AI, through the tools that we build, better outcomes from a creative perspective, we need to have more open, more ethical, and more diverse resources when we build AI. And here are some tools to consider. So to conclude, when we think about creative futures in technology, whether we're working with artists or dancers, music, film, at the very fundamentals of it and at the base of it is the value systems that we channel into these technologies. And those are going to be led from the ground up, from diverse perspectives, and from making sure that everybody, whatever your field of work, feels that you're at the table in building technologies for the future. Thank you.